So first, Doreen, thank you for having me again. This is
Thank
our
you.
second episode of Season the Hill, and
Yes.
so we're very excited that we had our little intro I think, now a few months ago now. But
It's been a while.
I mean, I think we're getting excited to make this more regular, and so getting the ball
Mm-hmm.
rolling on that. We
Yep.
did kind of an introduction to what like, mental health is, a little introduction to ourselves as well.
Yes.
But I have a topic today, trauma. I guess we
Yes.
can jump right into. Do you want to start with anything?
No, I think I would love to just hear what you have in store for me. I know we kind of talk a little bit about that, and I think trauma is such a, you know, it is becoming a buzzword in our society and even in our small town that, let's say I have a difficult time at work, that must be trauma. And I think it is important for all of us to understand really, what this is about, and not only understanding it, but also giving, kindness and compassion, sincere understanding, honoring this very, I look at it as a sacred opportunity to really understand and give respect to the people that experience it. So, MaKyle and I we looked into the questions, and it was very, I love the questions he created, that which we hope, the listeners will gain benefit from.
Definitely, and that's kind of like why we're here, just to kind of ask those questions and kind of like break down that stigma behind everything,
Exactly.
so that we can both not only for you but also myself to get a better understanding of what everything is, or at least get a
Mm-hmm.
somewhat of an understanding, so that we can ourselves and everyone that's watching as well kind of
Absolutely.
work to get into a much, if not already in a great place, but a much better place.
Yes, I think so. So this is really, season to heal. Especially, we're gonna be diving in to, what is trauma, and this is for you. This is for the people.
Definitely. But without any further ado, can I jump in the question?
Go for it. Go
All
for
right.
it.
Well, I
Yeah.
think to talk about such a complex topic, I
It
mean,
is.
I'm sure there's so many ways we can go with this. I guess we can just start with like a baseline understanding of what is trauma. Like, can you
Mm-hmm.
break it down into one definition, which I'm sure it's probably a lot more complicated than that.
It is, you're right. It can be like a year of a year of just understanding what it is about. But if we break it down to more, I don't want to call it simple term, but perhaps digestible and chewable for everyone. It actually, I derived this from Bessel van der Kolk, who is an expert in the trauma field. Trauma is what overwhelms someone's capacity to cope. It overwhelms the system. So what it is a response that, each and every one of us have different perspective. We are wired differently, and the way we handle stress, the way we handle difficult situation is going to be different from, I will handle it differently than yours, and vice versa. And the biggest key here is when an individual, not everyone, but when an individual experience overwhelmingness in their system, and that names autonomic nervous system, that can be traumatic. When someone experience fearful and threatening life event, not necessarily that person will develop PTSD. And some people may develop PTSD as well. So I think that's a very, it's not an answer that you're going to get like a quick, clear definition. But in order for us to just understand that, kind of like in an umbrella way, it overwhelms someone's capacity to cope, leaving them feeling helpless, feeling triggered, and also those traumatic stress response like fight, flight, freeze, and submit.
Mhm.
It continues to linger in their system.
And like you said, it kind of like delineates between everyone because everyone's built the same.
Exactly.
And so I imagine just with that baseline on top of that, you also have like I guess kind of just experiences that may have contributed to trauma as well. I would imagine also kind of give you like a different, I guess like different outcomes
Right.
of what someone might experience.
Well, I think you've got a point there. So let's just look at an example here. So, the horrific event in 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say there's two MaKyles, MaKyle A and MaKyle B, and they got out of the they got out of the World Trade Center. So what will be the determinant that one will possibly get PTSD and the other one's not? So it could be when they come home. Both of them come home at that certain that specific day. MaKyle A went to a home, so he's already frazzled. He's already he's already feeling all those traumatic and stress responses. He comes home, and there are people taking care of him. Are you okay? Go ahead and process and talk about this whenever you're ready. There are people safe that he can connect with. So that's MaKyle A. The likelihood that MaKyle A develop PTSD is probably very slim because he receives support. He receives, safe and secure home. Now let's look at MaKyle B. MaKyle B left the same time as MaKyle A, but when he got home, it's either he does not have anyone to connect to, or when he comes home, he would get beat up. He gets beat up. He gets abused by people that's supposed to be caring for him. Who has the likelihood to get PTSD or develop PTSD or other traumatic symptoms? It's MaKyle B. So I think it is important for us to understand that we need to look at the individual's, support system as well as their capacity to cope.
And I imagine, like, kind of just looking at your examples, it's kind of like having that safe place.
Yes.
Ultimately, the kind of, I imagine some level of like letting your guard down, or is that kind of what that kind of process looks like for MaKyle A in that scenario of just basically, I don't have to be on edge now. It's just a release and then like a safe place to kind of process things.
Exactly. Or even if, let's say, he could not process it yet, but there are people that validated his experience. Like, we're here for you. We're listening. We're listening. We get you. Those are determinants of strengths and healing. I wanted to quote what Dr. Stephen Porges, who is the developer of polyvagal theory, he said that safety is actually treatment. Safety is healing. When we feel that we are safe with the other individual, that can heal trauma. That can also heal, chronic PTSD. Kind of like what you're saying, somebody validating somebody, someone, or MaKyle A, he's already feeling that, okay, I can let go. I can release.
At the end of the day.
Yes, I can breathe now.
Definitely. And I suppose moving beyond that, I mean, just kind of understanding that, I guess, what are some of the, I don't want to call them symptoms, but some of the outcomes that someone might experience with trauma, like when those key or kind of like highlighted like little events happen.
So there are many. Again, we can cover this more in our future podcast, but I'm just going to be pointing out two important things that really highlight, okay, is this person, let's say I got impacted by trauma or this horrific situation, something to is that kind of like your answer, like, or your question, like, kind of pay attention?
I think what would we traditionally kind of correlate with trauma, like in terms of what it looks like?
Like what it looks like, the behavior. Two things I wanted to point out to our listeners here. One is, after the event happened, when someone experiences dysregulation. And what does, I guess let's start first with what is regulation. It is kind of like our internal and external thermometer. Kind of like you dial it down. Am I too hot or am I too cold? And what is in between? When someone experienced traumatic situation and they got out of that, and they might have that symptoms or behavior dysregulation, they may look more irritable, or probably disconnected, or probably checked out, like they feel like they're not in their own space. They might be isolating. With kids, dysregulation can also be in the form of, and I've noticed this with little kids, they get a lot of headache. Headaches, tummy aches. Those are what we call somatic complaints, which is body complaints. And you feel like you're out of place. Like dysregulation is, okay, I don't know how to handle this situation. When before I could, now I cannot. Let's say your boss just kind of raised their voice a little bit. You might be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So that is one, those are just some of the,
And I say, does that kind of play into just kind of the three things? And please, if I'm misquoting, just kind of cut me off. But kind of like the flight kind of response in terms of I can't comprehend or can't process what's going on at the moment. That basically your body is kind of giving you like a sign that you need to remove yourself from the situation in some sense. Is that, am I kind of on base with that? Or?
Well, it would look like fight and flight, right?
Gotcha.
Dysregulation may look like somebody is, okay, I'm ready to, attack or ready to confront that person. Or, you know what, I'm fleeing. I don't know what to do. I need to pull away. When in reality, that environment is not unsafe. It's kind of like just that imprint of what happened to them, kind of like it mimicked it. Does it make sense? So that can be, dysregulation. And then the other one I wanted to point out is disconnection. When someone experienced significant trauma, early childhood trauma, or PTSD, or any type of or acute stress trauma, it's either the person can feel like I need to isolate. It just get to be too much to me. Like it feels like everything around me triggers me. Everything around me, kind of like in the case of veterans, let's say July 4th can be triggering for them. I need to pull away. I need to isolate, to the point where it actually affects someone's relationship now. So those are the two things I just want to point out for today. There's the dysregulation where, they get activated easily, and also disconnection where people disconnect or isolate themselves.
And I've seen this on a TV show, which again, back to my my kind of cliche of going back to TV and entertainment. I think it was a series called Better Call Saul, where one character kind of has he has like some type of I guess like connection with like electricity. Like he can't do with electricity very well. Like he lives in like a house that
I need to get that TV show.
And but basically there's something he does where basically he tries to force himself to overcome this kind of like little obstacle for himself. Ultimately, and he basically has something where he goes into like a convenience store where there's a lot of electricity lights overhead, refrigerators, everything. And then you can just hear like the buzzing is like one of the key signs that it's really getting to him. So like it's just like buzzing, like electrical buzzing in the ear. And he does something called I don't know what it's called, but he basically like looks at something. He like says what color it is. He looks at the ground. Like says like what kind of texture it is. Like is that like some type of I guess some type of technique that's been developed at all? Like, cause he I think it was like touch, see, or something. Is that am I on to something, or is that just something that they?
Oh, so it's kind of like what you're saying is some type of a coping skill.
I guess like I think think I saw somebody call it grounding.
I was going to say that. Yes, I was going to say that. So grounding, again, when somebody experiences trauma, it's either they get so activated, they get overwhelmed, which is hyperarousal, or hypoarousal, to where you don't feel your body anymore, you're disconnected, you're numb. And what grounding is a healthy, that is a healthy coping mechanism. So what grounding is about is, I can feel kind of like what he's doing. He's feeling the texture. I can feel my feet on the floor. I can see, I can smell, I can smell the lemon, or I can smell vanilla in this room, or I can see MaKyle looking at me and we're visiting. So grounding is a form of a present day, I am present, I am here, type of coping skill.
So, I was just curious about that. If that was something there's something real or something just made up, because it's kind of sometimes in entertainment you see things and you're like, I wonder if that's actually like something that actually is done in real life.
Yeah, and I think in a different. I know you're talking about a movie, and it is. It's actually in the therapy field, we teach people grounding techniques, and even like anchoring back to your breath. What are you noticing in your body right now? I'm feeling tight in my chest. Okay, what are you noticing in your breath? I'm breathing shallow. Okay, let's just take a moment to do a shifting. You're breathing into something more not heavy, but more complete, like breathing in and then out. Yes. So those are grounding techniques, which very helpful. And again, this is something that that can be very successful and yet can be quite challenging to the people that experience trauma, because it is a matter of really reminding yourself, I need to stay in the present. Yep, which can be challenging when you've experienced trauma and your system learned to either be aroused or disconnect.
That's so it's really interesting that, particularly at least jumping onto the entertainment aspect, how they can portray that pretty accurately.
Yeah,
and just see kind of like gives a perspective of like we might not be able to deal with it ourselves each day, but there are individuals out there that do.
Yes.
So I mean, it's at least in that aspect, I say kudos to the producers of that show for that.
Well, they probably did a lot of thinking and just connecting with people as well, right? How do you handle, or what are the different skills to address trauma, so in that way you're present, and those are the hallmarks of traumatic stress. When someone is quite dysregulated, when someone, kind of like what we're talking about, when they're disconnected. And I'm going to add another one called, I call it sense of meaning, or systems of meaning. Some people, we may notice this, that they don't have, it's either they look at the future or look at themselves very negatively. There's that worthlessness, helplessness, hopelessness view of self and view of the future. So that can also be a hallmark of trauma.
And I suppose, at least kind of getting into my questions, kind of talk a little bit.
Are we covering it? I think we do, right? Give us a comment there, guys.
I guess we kind of see like a lot of the major kind of interactions, like you were saying, like they get into like a state of they kind of disconnect themselves.
Yes.
Or they just get like so overwhelmed. Are there like other, I guess, like are kind of dumb micro behaviors where someone might do something to potentially, I would say, avoid certain situations that they have found that kind of put them into like that type of state? Like I'm kind of thinking, like you were talking like the isolation, for instance. Like, are there behaviors like that where they just kind of do certain things that may not be that exactly, but maybe something's like almost like something along the path to get there?
Mm-hmm. This is the tricky part. Sometimes, well, I'm sorry, not sometimes. When an individual experiences trauma, they may not even be aware of it. So let's say we're talking about isolation, right? They may not know. They may not be there. There might not be a discernment or an interoception awareness, which is being aware of what's going on inside, that they are behaving that way, or that they are doing it. And so not the trick, but what we need to help them understand is what is happening in my body to where it drives me to isolate, or let's say, there's a holiday, and why is it, holiday, I need to go someplace, or I get overwhelmed, or when I start to have, that's when I start to have nightmares. It's just an example. So there are always, again, trauma is the imprints of something bad that happened in the past. Yes. And so identifying those triggers can be helpful as well. And again, it takes some time. Some folks may, or they might get so exhausted all of a sudden, or they have a defeating talk of, no, I can't do that, defeating talk about themselves, or they may look at future as, there's really no hope in the future, and there's I cannot trust anyone. And I think, isolation goes along with it. Sometimes it is important to identify what is, the difference between, just isolation related to trauma and isolation related to major depression. So, that's going to be another conversation, but being aware of the triggers is that's actually part of therapy objectives, just identifying triggers.
Is there, I guess, without diving too much into that future conversation, is there like a key difference between was it trauma and major depression? Is there a key difference between the two, or are they like a little intertwined, that they kind of are one and?
So right now, what I can say is, when someone experiences major depression, that is, biologically connected. And then trauma is an event.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep, trauma is an event, and then major depression is there's biology involved here. It will not. Oftentimes, that's why it can be complex, because it may look like the same.
Gotcha.
And I think maybe the difference is, is this person operating in a trauma response? And what I mean by that is it activated by the fight, flight, freeze, and response. Fight, flight, freeze, submit, response. Or isolation is just, I just don't have any motivation to go anywhere, because major depression is a motivation. And this one is, I'm afraid of something. I need to flee, or I need to fight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gotcha. It kind of underlines, I guess, the difference.
Yes.
In terms of, I guess, trauma is more event related, while depression is a little bit more
biology. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That's it. That's why I have to check my. I get so into the conversation.
It is. This is huge, and we can, it can be a long-term, lifetime, learning for all of us. Yeah.
So I imagine, even if I always hear I watch a channel called, I think I shared it with you, Cinema Therapy, where they kind of, they basically digest and kind of go through a lot of entertainment, which is I think one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much, because it's kind of a reflection of real life.
Yes.
In that regard. And they basically go through, and they kind of had a series where they did a clip or a video on characters that were in multiple movie series, and how their relationship kind of where it was here, then it kind of went down at the beginning of another movie, and kind of relapsed back into a good healthy space. And it's always you can get like 2 steps forward and you can kind of just
And
backslide
then
into your old habits, and
Yep.
it's interesting that it's never like a constant thing. It's something that it's fluid and it can change at any time.
Yeah. And I think you shared that with me. Something for you folks to, look into that. It's cinema therapy. Okay. Yep. I think that's good.
Which it's just a kind of shout out for them. It's a series where it's a film producer, if I remember correctly, and then also a therapist, or I think friends in college or some level of friendship there, and then they kind of went to their own professions and they kind of joined together to kind of give you that collaboration of entertainment and therapy, which is called cinema therapy.
I think I looked on the stuff that you sent me. I think I'm going to be using those clips on our next training.
And speaking of that, when is the next one?
Oh, yes. Wow, it just well, going with the flow, right? So we do have a training coming up on December. It's December 13th, Friday the 13th. This is module 7 on provider bias, racism, and I think there's another one. So provider bias and provider bias and racism. So I think this is tailored to more of the healthcare field, on how to work and how to communicate with people better. Yeah,
definitely. Which I'm actually very excited for.
I am too.
I attended the last one. It was very informative. I mean, I'm not a clinical health technician
but
myself, but
you work with people. We work with people. Yeah.
And it's really interesting, I'd say, just overall, like understanding like the bigger concepts that kind of feed into the mini or smaller concepts as well.
Yes.
Particularly because we live in such like a diverse and unique community that it's just really great to first understand, like what some of these situations might look like in other communities that are bigger, where like they're kind of like these situations are like pretty much presented like on a day-to-day basis, but then also to kind of have that understanding of that, but then kind of coming back to the table with those same groups and individuals of hey, you're just a person just like myself, and it's just just that great collaboration aspect.
Well, it's what you're talking about, collaboration and the diversity, right? And that's why trauma cannot just be summed in one answer, because each individual experiences trauma in different ways. So sometimes, like I'm just going to use myself as an example, I came from a country where, typhoons and what do you guys call it here? Hurricane. We call it, in the Philippines, we call it typhoon, or we are familiar with brownouts or,
Blackouts.
Blackouts. We're very familiar with that. I grew up in that environment, and when people here, they freak out, which is, scary, but it does not, it bother me, but I don't get frazzled, to the point like, oh my gosh, the world's going to end, or because I was exposed to that. And that's what I was saying about, about what trauma, earlier, that that it impacts us differently. The key to that is understanding if it overwhelms someone's capacity to function to the point where it depletes them, it affects the way they relate to people and to themselves, then that can be traumatic.
I'd say, you kind of, how you said that, you kind of brought up an interesting question in my mind. Would it be considered trauma if you come into an interaction? Say that, for instance, the power going out. So you've gone your entire life, having access to electricity, never had that issue. And then one day, the weather is like a really bad one, and it goes out. You can be like, like a middle-aged person, and you're just like, this is just like so overwhelming. Would that, I guess, in some sense, be considered trauma? Or am I kind of getting like splitting hairs a little bit?
I think it really depends if the situation is threatening to someone's life.
Gotcha.
Yes, it may be extreme stress, but it may not qualify as a trauma because again, there's this DSM-5 that we use as to diagnose is that situation threatens someone's dignity, someone's safety, and someone's life. If it gets to that, then trauma can be considered as, a diagnosis or, what happened to that person.
Gotcha. And again, just trying to get to the questions. I know I keep digressing.
No, it's good. I think I think we need this flow. So
what are some of the, because we talked about the isolation, are there like any other consequences that we might see from someone that has experienced, I guess, trauma?
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned isolation, some level of, if I recall correctly, like some like relationship with others and themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then was there any others?
So, I mean, this is my experience working with various age group. So we have the isolation, the systems of meaning get impacted, like what they believe about themselves, about others, and about the world. The hypoarousal, the dysregulation. The somatic, which we talked a little bit about, we have noticed as well that there is a correlation between trauma, unresolved trauma, and someone's immune system. So if we check this out, guys, it's the adverse childhood experience. When someone experienced five and more adversities growing up, the likelihood that they develop physical illnesses such as poor immune system, fibromyalgia, and even early death is actually quite strong for somebody that experienced 5 and more adversities. And we can look into that next time. The subtle things too, I think it could be, I think it boils into the relationship with others, inattention, poor concentration, difficulty with concentration and attention, which can be, you may misinterpret that as an ADHD, or ADD. So the thing that we need to understand is we need to understand the background of the individual. If this person experienced trauma, significant trauma, these are just some of the symptoms, possible symptoms, big symptoms and small symptoms.
And that kind of leads into my next and last question I have listed. Is there, I guess, what would be the kind of the next steps for someone that maybe if they don't realize, or maybe they're starting to kind of ask themselves like, oh, why do I act this way? Or perhaps like that, I guess, how does that, I guess, kind of like little click or little, I guess, like corner turn happen? Is it like they kind of realize it in themselves? Is it something that, that others kind of point out to them? I guess.
I think it's a combination. When I think this is when we start to realize, okay, maybe I need help, right? Kind of like as what you said when you turn the corner, or there's that awareness. When it starts, when you notice that, okay, I'm getting sick more and more, physically sick more and more, or someone shared with them, hey, you know what, you're pulling away, you're isolating yourself from us, what's going on? Or it even impacting work to the point where, what, we have to let you go because, you're you're not really functioning well. I think sometimes in life, we need to experience those crises. Then we realize, like, again, okay, what is happening with me? Is it something I need to address now, or is it something? And then when somebody's telling us what is going on, right? Let's say our friends are, not connecting with us anymore. They're upset, or they don't want it, or they're, trying to reach out to you. It's a combination. It is, from people, and also for us, if we don't want to resolve that, something drastic needs to happen to, to start that move of, okay, I need to do something different. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, because I don't know if this works how it works for everyone else, but like there's always like a constant kind of like monologue in my head of, I wouldn't say a split personality, but more or less just like, I kind of like just like review my day, like, just kind of just remember things, maybe like archive it in my mind of things I need to, get done tomorrow or, the following week, etc. But there's always times where I'm thinking like, I wonder why I did that.
Yep.
And it's just kind of an interesting thing of, I guess, is that how some people come about, reaching out, or
we all come from different places, and some people, that little, that little ounce, or that little pinch of self-awareness, because that's what self-awareness is about. I wonder what is happening with me every time every time holiday happens, I get more triggered than, So I think we all come from different places. And some people, one is that self-awareness, that pint, that pinch of self-awareness, that can be something where people start to, okay, I need to do something. Or somebody may need to reach that state of crisis, that somebody has to intervene, or they have to intervene, or, pair or friends might either be pulling away more or might be reaching out more. So I think, again, it can come in different, different avenues. Yep. Different roads.
I'd say, I mean, other than that, is there anything else you want to speak on in terms of trauma? Or just like overall, I mean, sure, we'll probably touch on it again another day, but
yes, well, and I think it's good to, I think it's always good to remember whether someone experienced trauma or any, type of stressor, grounding yourself in breath. I always tell people, that I work with, and even myself, I remind myself, okay, when I'm starting to, to hyperventilate or not checking, I'm disconnecting. Remember to breathe before you hit that point where you don't feel anything or you feel too much. So just doing, what, let's do it. Let's just do it. We'll do breath work. I will, this probably we can close here. So feeling our feet on the floor. And again, like what MaKyle was talking about earlier, the grounding. So feeling our feet on the floor. If you need to, to adjust your posture to where you feel much comfortable. So just take a moment. Okay. And I always direct my clients or myself to, feeling, one hand on I call emotional heart, and the other one, doesn't matter what side, and then the other one in our, our gut instinct, our belly brain. And let's just do 3 sets of breathing in and then out. And this is the trick here. When we're breathing out, breathe in slowly out, kind of like you're letting the air from the balloon completely. Okay, in. And slow breath out. Feeling your shoulders dropping. And then one more, breathing in. And then breathe out. Allowing your shoulders to drop. There you go. Yes, we can.
In there, I feel so much better.
Isn't it? I mean, I think it is a strategy that we don't take we take for granted. That breath work. So we would love the listeners to share what they think of that. But you do that, incorporate that every single day, even once a day.
Or maybe like your meditation in the morning or
Yep.
evening.
Yep, you can do that, 3 times, breathing in, and then what makes a difference is you are breathing out slowly. And that helps people to not engage in those hyperarousal, hyperventilation. So
definitely. Well, I certainly appreciate the topic today.
Yes.
It was awesome. I mean, I can't wait for the next one we come up with for the topic.
Yeah.
I was like inventing questions for you.
maybe the next time I'll be the one to ask you. And well, this is for it's not only for the mental health field, but also what the community, and you are the symbol, or you're the one that represents the community.
I'd say in some aspects most definitely, but in others I'm not so sure, but I certainly appreciate it.
Yes.
But just a reminder for your next training again.
Yes. So the next training, and we're going to let people know about that more and more, coming soon. December. That's pretty random, right? December 13, and it's the December 13. It's a Zoom session, 9 to 11, on provider implicit bias and racism. So I think that would be a great conversation, and a great training once again.
And who would that be for specifically?
I would, healthcare workers, community partners. This is for people that actually work actively with clients, with communities. So.
And do we get anything as being in attendance for the event?
That's a great question. Yes. So at the end of the training, as soon as you complete the survey and complete the survey and signing up your name, then you will receive a certificate of attendance.
Awesome. And then how would they go about getting or being part of the
training? Yes. So in order for us to send you the link, connect with Megan Grafey, and you can get a hold of her at Megan at CHTAinc.org. Again, it's Megan, MEGAN at CHTAinc.org.
Awesome. And then I believe you also have an event coming up in November as well.
Yes. Are you going?
I am. I'm planning on it.
You are? Yes. Well, don't forget we're running the early bird now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our fourth masquerade ball. And it's going to be, the theme is Big Band Era. It's actually, hold on here. Big Band Era, one harmony, one community.
Oh, it's going to be like a giant harmonica, or everyone just plays it at once?
Well, we've got some really cool surprise for people that attend. We have silent auction. It's just community gathering. We have this wonderful grazing table, kind of like what we did last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also a couple more things that I think people would love to be part of.
Awesome. How do people be a part of that?
Yes, so they can connect with me. You can text, or you can call 970-397-4609. Or look into our website. They can register there at www.chtainc.org. So, and we're gonna keep on advertising this, more and more, especially now that we're in September.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, not September. We're gonna be moving to October.
Next week.
Holy cow! Wow. Yeah.
And early bird special is deadline October.
Yes. Excuse me. So thank you for reminding me. So now we have, as of this week, starting this week till October 13, it's $50 for the ticket. And after October 13, it goes up to $55. So whoever is interested, grab get a hold of us, and you can purchase it for $50 per person.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, be sure to get in touch with them to get that sorted
Yes.
out. And we don't want to miss you at the
No.
masquerade ball on a day was that November
November 16th.
16th.
Yep, November 16th, and we open the door at 5:45, from 5:45 to 9 p.m.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Yes.
certainly one not to miss.
Yes.
So, but beyond that, I'm MaKyle and
Doreen Hills.
And we appreciate you guys for coming to visit us again for the Season the Hill episode 2. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.